our YouTube channel. So, okay. So what is exception handling? So when you get an exception at runtime, those errors can be handled by this exception handling concept. So exception means an unexpected event that stops your program execution in the middle. So for example, you have 15 lines. You got an error in the 5th line. It will stop there only. Rest of the code won't execute. Your program will terminate on the 5th line itself. Which line you got an exception, that line itself will terminate the program execution. Then the rest of the code, you are not able to test it. So in order to solve that, so in order to continue till the end of the last line, your program execution, so you need to use exception handling concept. So exception handling is one of the very powerful mechanism to handle the runtime errors so that normal flow of the application can be maintained. Normal flow of the application program execution can be maintained. So you can execute it till the end, all lines of code, even the exception occurs. Even though if you have an exception, still you can continue your program execution till last. It will throw on that line exception, but continue the next lines of code. So that's this exception handling means to handle the runtime errors and to make the program execution very smooth. You're going to use exception handling concept. So what is exception? I told you. Exception means an expected, unwanted event which occurs during the execution of your program at runtime, that it disrupts or stops your program execution in the middle. So that is called exception. Exception is called nothing but it's a object. You can catch that exception. You can find out what is the reason for that exception. You can handle that. So there is one more error. So error is a serious problem. So application cannot catch that. So there is something error in the code. You cannot catch that. So that's the difference between error and exception. So when exception occurs, program execution gets terminated. So in that cases, you will get a system generated messages. So system generated messages you cannot understand efficiently, right? Frequently, you need a meaningful message to understand that why you got this error in this line. If you want to understand, you need a meaningful message. That meaningful message you can write with this exception handling. You can catch those exceptions and you can give that exception message. So that is possible with this exception concept. And user can easily understand and he can debug the reason, root for the issue. You can easily find out by seeing the messages, all those things. That's the main objective of this exception handling concept. So the hierarchy of exceptions is, so these exception classes are available in java.lang package. Remember that. Java.lang package, these exception classes are available. All the exceptions, the root class is throwable class. Throwable above object class. So object, throwable, then you have all this. Throwable, exception, and this side error. So exception again categorized into IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception, file not found exception. All this comes under this category. And there is one more, runtime exceptions. Runtime exceptions means they will occur at runtime, but these occurs at compile time only. These are called checked exceptions, and these runtime exceptions are called unchecked exceptions. So basically, exceptions are two types: checked exceptions, unchecked exceptions. What is checked exceptions? The classes which inherits the throwable class. See, these classes are inheriting to throwable class is called checked exceptions. Checked exceptions occurs at compile time. While writing the code itself, these exceptions will be thrown to you. You have to handle them. By declaring these exceptions, you can handle them. And example for these checked exceptions is IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception, and file not found exception. There is unchecked exceptions. The classes which inherits to runtime exception is called unchecked exception. Unchecked exceptions example is arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, array index out of bounds exception, string index out of bounds exception. So these are all occurs at a runtime only. So they won't occur at a compile time. Compile time, it won't throw any error. After running your program, then this will be thrown to you. That's why these are compile time exceptions. These are runtime exceptions. And there is an error category. So stack overflow error, when your stack memory is overflowing, then you will get this error. Virtual machine error, JVM, so it will throw this out of memory error. Your heap is so exceeded. So then you will get out of memory error. And another one, very important, assertion error. You will see regularly in our programs. Assertion error in our Selenium programs, you will see assertion errors. Actual and expected values are not matching, you will see that. So that is this. And okay, so when you will get this, all this, okay, when you will get it, let's understand this runtime exceptions. Why you will get this arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, all this. So what is the reason for that? So let's understand the reason for each runtime exceptions. So first, arithmetic exception, why you will get it. If you divide any number by 0, then you will get an arithmetic exception. So in your code, you are dividing a number by 0, then you will get an arithmetic exception. So see, here is the example. Int a equal to 50 by 0. So you will get an arithmetic exception. Because you are dividing a number by 0. So you will get an arithmetic exception. So a scenario where null pointer exception occurs. So when you will get a null pointer exception, this is a very, very important NPE, people will call this. When you will get a null pointer exception, if we have a null value in any variable, so if you have a null value in the any variable, then you are performing operation on that variable, then it will throw null pointer exception. So what is the reason for null pointer exception? So the variable, reference variable, your object reference variable or string object reference variable, which is having a null value. On that null reference variable, if you are calling the methods, calling some operations, then it will throw null pointer exception. So that is the reason. Say string s equal to null. So now I am doing s dot length. See, this s has a null value. On that null variable, I am calling the length method. That's why it is going to throw null pointer exception. Not only this is just an example I'm saying. Your object reference variable also null is there. Then also you'll get a null pointer exception. Please make sure you can declare globally your object reference variable, but make sure you are calling that. You are giving a value for that variable. So that variable, if you are not passing the value, it will throw null pointer exception. So next, number format exception. So when you will get a number format exception, the wrong formatting of a value may occur number format exception. Suppose, so I have a string variable that has all the characters. So you are converting the variable into digit. The characters you are converting into digit will throw number format exception. So string s equal to abc and int I equal to integer dot parse int. So integer is a here. See, in the left side, this is the primitive data type, right? This is the primitive data type. You are converting the string object into primitive format with this formula, integer dot parse int. So parse int is a method. What type of method is this? Statica, non-statica. And this is a class. What type of method is this? Parse int. Statica, non-statica. Integer is a class.
Static.
Static method, right?
Static.
Always have the static methods you will call with the class name.
Class name dot static.
Class name dot static method. If you want to identify that non-static, there should be object, but this is not object, right? So integer is a class. How you can recognize this is a class? A first letter capital. And then dot the method. This is the method naming conventions you are following, and that's a static method. Immediately you can tell class name dot static method. All this beginnings we told this, all this. And say repeating. Okay. That's here you are converting string object into a primitive format. This is the wrong conversion, right? Alphabets you cannot convert into integer primitive format. Is it possible? No, it's not possible. That's why you will get a number format exception. Any wrong formatting, this is one example I'm giving, but any wrong formatting you will try to do, then that line will throw number format exception. Last one you are very familiar, right? Array index out of bounds exception. So when you will get array index out of bounds exception,
Number of elements.
so if you are inserting a wrong value in the wrong index, and also you are accessing the elements, but there is no elements in the array, and also more than the array size, you are trying to insert the value. That's what discovering, this statement is covering. So in all these cases, you will get an array index out of bounds exception. So int a equal to new int 5. See now what I'm doing, which element I'm placing here in this array? Which position I'm placing this 50? F 10 equal to 50 means which element that is?
11th element.
11th element. 11th element. So 11th element you are placing. There is no size at all 11th. This is only 5 only. This array accepts only 5 elements, but I am placing 11th position this value. That's why you will get a, in this line, so you will get a array index out of bounds exception. Immediately you need to catch this kind of issues. So if you understand, you can solve the problem, right? Why you will get that exception? If you understand, you can solve it. So that is the one, all these reasons we must know why we are getting a each exception. Okay. Now, okay, you got the, you came to know why you will get each runtime exception. Why you will get a arithmetic exception, divided by any number by 0, you will get a arithmetic exception. And why you will get a null pointer exception? Any variable has a null value. On that null variable, you are performing some operation. Then it will throw null pointer exception. So number format exception, why you will get when you are doing a wrong formatting, wrong conversion, then it will throw number format exception. And when you will get a array index out of bounds exception, when you are inserting a value at a wrong index, it will throw array index out of bounds exception. Okay, now we came to know why you will get. Then how to solve them? How to solve that issues? That exceptions are coming, okay, how I can handle them? So to handle them, there are 5 keywords you need to use. Try, catch, finally, throw, and throws keywords. These 5 keywords you can use to handle this exceptions at runtime. So the first Java try block. So Java try block is used to enclose the code, which line of code is throwing an exception. That line you put inside the try block. So it must be, the try block must be used within the method. If an exception occurs at the particular statement of try block, the rest of the block code will not execute. So for example, in the try block, you have 5 lines. Line 2, you got an exception. 3, 4, 5 lines won't execute. It will skip and it will go to catch block. Because in the try block, you got an exception. The immediately catch block will catch that exception and catch block will execute for you. That's a try catch block. So try block, you have to keep only which line is throwing exception, only that line you keep. The lines that are not related to that exception, move outside the try catch block. Don't keep all the code in the try catch block, which is not relevant to that line. So make sure it is recommended not to keep the code in try block. That will not throw any exception. This try block must be followed by either catch block or finally block. So try block alone you cannot write. Try block must be followed by either catch block or finally block. Finally. So yesterday we learned a final key. What finalize key? Finalize method. Now I am concentrating on the finally block. So this is the syntax. Try the block, then immediately catch block, parenthesis, exception class name you have to write here, and then object reference. Then below you can write, there are 3 methods are there. Get message, get the exception message. Get cause, get the cause of the exception. Print stack trace method. These methods are inbuilt in the throwable class. Throwable is the root class, right, for all the exceptions. Then the child of throwable is exception class. So these methods are declared there. That's why you can use it for any exception class. These are all methods, all 3 methods. Print stack trace. Remember that. So you can call here print stack trace method. Syntax of try finally block. Syntax of try finally. This is a try catch block syntax. Try finally block is try block. Finally, curly brackets. So I'll tell you what is finally, but understand. So we'll understand this after this catch block. So let's understand. Are you clear on the try block? What code you need to keep in the try block? All the lines of code I told you, right? The which is throwing a line of exception. Which line is causing the exception? Only that line you keep in the try block. And then catch block. So automatically when there is an issue in the try block, catch block will go catch that exception and then catch block code will execute. So it's meaningful. The catch block will catch the exception in the try block. Then catch block code will execute. If there is no exception here, then catch block won't execute. Very simple. Only there is an exception in the try block, then only catch block will execute. If there is no exception in the try block, catch block won't execute. So that's what I covered this. Java multi-catch blocks. You can write multi-catch blocks like this. Try, catch, arithmetic exception. See here, one is 30 by 0 will throw arithmetic exception, right? But you are putting that, you are inserting this 30 by 0 in the 6th position. But here maximum 5 elements only can store. But you are placing 6th element. That's why arithmetic exception it will throw here. And the same another exception is array index out of bounds exception. And last one is exception. So this code is generating 2 exceptions. That's why more than one exceptions if you want to handle, you can use multi-catch blocks. Multi-catch blocks. So these are the one try block multi-catch blocks. Okay. Any questions here? Try block and catch block, are you clear? When finally block code, when catch block will execute? When catch block will execute?
When there is an exception.
When there is an exception in the try block. If there is no exception in the try block, what will happen? Catch block will execute or no?
No.
There is no exception in the try block. Catch block will execute or no?
No.
You won't.
Catch block won't execute. If there is no exception in the try block, catch block is not going to execute. Please understand all these very important points. So these points are very, very important. Otherwise, you cannot answer the interview questions also. Now, okay. So finally block. So finally block is used to execute an important code, such as closing database connections, file closing, all such kind of code. If you want to execute, put that code in the finally block. So anything that is important, the top code even not executed also, but you want to execute particular lines of code mandatorily, put that line of code in the finally block. Finally block code gets executed always. Yeah. So finally block code gets executed always. There is no chance of missing. And whether you have exception in the try block, that time also finally block code will execute. If you don't have exception in the try block also, finally block code will execute. Both cases finally block. That means always finally block code will execute. So finally block follows try or catch blocks. Try after catch after you can write finally. Or if you don't want to take a catch block, you can write a try first, then finally block. So this is the syntax how you write a finally block. Block means, remember, the curly brackets must be there. So I'll explain this later, but why you use a Java finally block? Finally block mainly used to do a cleanup activity. So like closing the files, closing the database connections, that purpose you will use finally block. So cleaning activity, if you want to do in your code, you will use finally block. So when the finally block code doesn't execute, this is another interview question. So which situation finally block code doesn't execute? Generally, always finally block code will execute, but some cases finally block code doesn't execute. What are the situations? So you are using a threads, thread.sleep. That thread is killed. Such cases, the finally block code doesn't execute. You have written a system.exit method in the program. Such cases, finally block code doesn't execute. And there is an exception in the finally block itself. Such case also, finally block code doesn't execute. So these are the three situations you can give answers. How can you close the connections? There is a close method to close all the open files or objects. So you create an object, you want to close that object. Object reference dot close method you call. Then that will be closed. That object will be cleaned up from the heap. Whenever you need extra next time, it will create, no problem. But you can clean up after your activity. That's a best practice. So that's how finally block means. Okay. So what is Java throw keyword? Java throw keyword is used to explicitly throw your custom exception message. Like, array index out of bounds exception has only its own message, right? And arithmetic exception has its own message. System, it has its own message. But you can give for all these exception classes your custom message. That is possible with the throw keyword. Why throw keyword you need to use? To throw your custom exception message, or you want to throw your explicit exception message, you will use throw keyword. So you can throw either checked or unchecked exceptions. Basically, unchecked exceptions only will throw with the throw keyword. And throw keyword is mainly used within the method. Within the method you will use. What is the throw keyword syntax? Throw space new exception class and you write error message. What error message you want to give? So like this. Throw new arithmetic exception bracket dividing a number by 5 is not allowed in this program. This is my custom message I am writing. So that's the throw keyword main purpose. So what is this? What do you call this? What do you call this? New arithmetic exception. What do you call that?
We just creating an object for the class.
Create an object, right? Oh my God. So basic question. Very fundamental basic question you are not able to answer. Come on. So wherever you see new keyword, that's an object, right? This is the class name. And this is a parameterized constructor, this one. This is a parameterized constructor. And this entire thing is called an object. So is followed by an object or an instance. Okay, so this is the examples. I will see it out tomorrow, rest of the things. And tomorrow we'll try